Hi guys, it's Marc Zicree, Mr. Sci-Fi, also known as Marc Zicree of Space Command. And as you know, I started doing a series of videos about my friendship with Ray Bradbury, and we're going to be doing videos about Ray's relationship with Rod Serling, and also when Ray and I worked on the sequel to The Martian Chronicles, and also how Ray came to write Fahrenheit 451. Many, many, many interesting videos ahead. But today, I'm taking a step out of that series to do one on a subject that was of interest to me and I wanted to talk about, which is collecting stuff. Obviously, I collect stuff, and most of us in science fiction have passions for various items, whether it's Star Wars or Doctor Who. For instance, during the Tom Baker years, I collected Doctor Who stuff. I own the TARDIS tuner and many other items. But also the priorities in our life and what has meaning and how we change over the years in terms of what we collect and why we collect. And what sparked this was, many of you know I'm shooting Space Command. Probably all of you know that by now. I'm living the dream. I have my own studio with spaceship sets, and we're editing the first film and ramping up for the second. And people have been buying investment shares in the first film. We sold all those out, and now we're selling the second film, and it's going great. But it occurred to me, because you're always raising money to finance dreams like this, and it's terrific, that there were certain things in my collection that I felt I could share with the world, and I really didn't need to hold on to. And that would allow me to create even more of a fund for Space Command and speed the plow. So I generated a list last week, and I'll be putting some of these things up in various sites and so forth. So if you're a big-time collector and want to buy, for instance, Worf's nose from Next Gen, or some other fascinating things from Twilight Zone and Star Trek and all sorts of science fiction memorabilia, just email me at marczicree at gmail.com. I'll be happy to send you the list with photos. It's really fascinating. But mainly I wanted to talk, because I was thinking about this, about why we collect things in science fiction, because many people who love other kinds of movies don't collect things. I mean, action movie fans don't tend to collect, they're not buying, Bruce Willis figures. Maybe some are, but most aren't. But most science fiction fans, they've got, action figures or artwork, or they're wearing T-shirts of their favorite shows or movies. They collect books, etc. And I think there's a reason for this, which is we in science fiction, both as writers and as fans, and all of the writers basically start as fans. I mean, no one ends up doing science fiction who wasn't a devotee early on, one way or another. Science fiction creates universes, not just stories. For instance, I think when you see Die Hard, you think, gosh, I wish I could be at the Nakatomi Plaza and walk around there with Bruce Willis. It's like, it's not a beguiling world particularly. But if you watch, Serenity or, Star Wars or any of these wonderful fantasies, it's a world you want to go into. It's a populated world. You always think about, okay, if I turn left down that corner or right down that corner, what would I find? And it's not just about the characters. Star Trek The Next Generation proved that Star Trek was not about Kirk, Spock, McCoy. It can be, but it doesn't have to be. And even now, when I go on to these sound stages, I'm amazed, and I'm in those worlds. Even when I'm on the Space Command, on the Paladin's flight deck, I'm in that universe, and so I think we all feel that. So it's a two-way conversation, and when we buy an action figure or a toy or a collectible, for instance, here's something else from my collection that's really cool. Okay, this is from Far Beyond the Stars. When I came up with that episode, it was I had the experience of two studios shooting my work simultaneously. They were shooting World Killer. No, it was Slide Cage at Universal. I was a producer on Sliders at the time, and they were shooting the same week, same days, Far Beyond the Stars at Paramount. So I took a photo with both casts the same day, and with me in the same clothes. And so I went on to the Deep Space Nine set, and Mike Okuda gave me. They did all these fake pulp covers. I don't know if you can see it, but there it is. Which were decorating the office of the set. That's all the DS9 characters, and they all signed this original illustration for me. It's basically they ran off a number of these illustrations to decorate the offices, and they gave me one of those copies, and then the entire cast signed it, and I took a photo with the entire cast. And this is one of the items that I'm actually going to be sharing with Star Trek fans, some lucky Star Trek fan who wants to buy it, because for me, again, I have the memory, and I had the experience of creating it, and for a time this was something that had meaning to me. But again, it's sort of like, if I can share it with someone who will love it more, then that's fine. And so it was great, because when I went on the set, it was Avery Brooks was directing as well as starring in it, and he looked at me, and because he didn't know me, Armin Shimmerman knew me. I was friends with Armin, and and he was kind of looking at me while he was directing. And then finally they finished the cut, and they said, and he said, "Okay, everyone, lunch break." And I walked up to him and I said, "Hi, Mr. Brooks. I'm Marc Zicree. I came up with the story." And he said, "Everybody, stop!" And he put his arm around me and he said, "Say to them what you just said to me." And I said, "I came up with this story?" And he said, "He came up with this story." And everyone applauded me. So that is the moment, just I guess before this photo was taken. And but so it's fun because I got to be, I've gotten to go through the mirror on many of these wonderful universes, the Star Trek universe and so forth, and live in that world. And obviously with all these collections, there's something wonderful, and even with books, when you get a signed book, book signed by one of your favorite authors, like all these Ray Bradbury editions were signed by Ray to me, and again, you get to feel like you're a part of that book, that universe, in a way that's much more personal than just buying it and reading it and being done with it. So I think, when I did Babylon 5, for many years I had the prosthetic that was Jakar's face, and now that's at the Museum of the Moving Image on display and in New York. And I'm really glad of that because it's one thing, and that's I think why I look forward to sharing some of this collection with the collectors who will acquire some of it. Now, I'm not getting rid of all this stuff, obviously, but just certain things, phasers and so forth, your odds and ends, because there's something about sharing it that's actually, you get to a point in your life where it's really lovely to be able to do that. I'm glad that fans can go to the Museum of the Moving Image and seeing something that I was part of, and obviously when you create a show, you reach out to many millions of people, and that's also another way of having that conversation. But again, it's also why I'm so glad the internet and this channel now exists, because the dialogue, the two-way dialogue in science fiction has always been one of the things that I loved about it. And I love being able to talk to you guys, and I love being able to share my memories with you and my experiences, and in some cases some of the things that I've gathered and cherished, and now can let the world have part of. So anyway, I just wanted to talk about this a little bit because it's something I've been doing, and a friend of mine was talking about that whole experience of letting things go into the world, and the great gift we have to be able to be part of the world. Because those of us in science fiction, whether we go to conventions, whether we collect items, and then meet the actors or the writers or the directors who are part of those shows or movies, it's very much a collaborative medium. And often I'll talk to the fans, and they'll give me ideas where they'll say, "Well, how about this in Space Command? How about that?" And it's not so much that they're suggesting storylines as they'll ask me a question. Like someone said, "Well, are there other languages in the Space Command universe?" And Mira and her daughter speak Serbo-Croatian, because I thought, well, it wouldn't just be Klingon, it wouldn't just be, Romulan or the language they speak in Avatar. It would be, the languages we take out into space with us that we speak here. So that's, so that's why I love collecting. I love sharing. I love this whole world of science fiction. I'm so glad that my heart beats to this rhythm, and that a spaceship set or an alien world or all of these wonderful, what Guillermo calls eye protein, the eye candy of our genre, is so available to all of us and so exciting to all of us. So anyway, that's kind of a rambling share for this time. But again, if you're interested in the collection, please reach out to me. And obviously, if you want to buy a share in Space Command, reach out to me too, because we're creating this dream, all of us, just like we made the third season of Star Trek happen, just like we made all of these wonderful science fiction fantasies and these worlds happen. Because those of us, well, Ray Bradbury, when he was a kid, he read John Carter of Mars, A Princess of Mars, and he would walk out into the night and put his arms up to the night sky, and say, "Mars, take me home." And so the dreams that are created by those who go before us become the dreams that we take to heart, become the dreams that we then create that inspire others. It's funny, someone just sent me, another little aside, someone just sent me 2 photos of this creature that I created called Malcolm, this monster in an episode of He-Man that I wrote when I was in my early 20s. And this had such meaning for him as a child. It was one of the good things that he could look back on a rather stormy childhood. And he sent me these photos to sign to him as an adult. And I'm sure they're going to go on his wall. And it's just something that was something I did, years and years ago when I was a kid, but it's something that was a meaningful memory to him. And so I'm very glad to have created these meaningful memories for so many people. and I'm glad to share who I am and what I do, and more with all of you. So that's it for now. Share, like, comment, subscribe if you want to talk about interesting things you've collected. Please do. And we'll see you again next time when we'll be talking more about my dear friend and mentor, Ray Bradbury. Bye-bye.